For some reason, we suddenly kicked out of the William Tell Overture, but this is, in fact, Jay Frost. And you are back at the 2018 Flash Class series, so thank you for being here and putting up with our frivolity. The laughter in the background is our presenter, who I'll be introducing to you in a moment. But for the moment, I just want to welcome you to this series of Flash classes brought to you, of course, by DonorSearch. You won't be hearing much about DonorSearch today, so if you're interested in that, and you should be, do go take a look at DonorSearch.net for information on what the company does. But of course, one of the things they do is they really support our sector, which is why it's such a pleasure to be able to welcome the top presenters on the field of fundraising and philanthropy and everything that makes that possible. And that's what this whole series is about, and certainly what our presentation is about today. And by the way, if you're wondering if you've seen these sessions before, you know that there's usually been some kind of goofy music in the background. And last time, finally, one of our attendees said, you know what, you really need to change that to classical. How about the William Tell Overture? So that was for you, and I hope you appreciate that. We'll do our best to provide.
There it is again.
And obviously it wants to keep playing. Anyway, what I want to do, though, for just the next couple of minutes as you gather your thoughts, your colleagues, gather around your favorite screen, grab something nice to drink, sit in your most comfortable chair, is to reintroduce this platform so you'll know how to get the content that will be presented the next few minutes, as well as have the opportunity to engage with our presenter. So first, we'll begin with the platform itself. As you probably know, we're using GoToWebinar, and if you're familiar with it, you know a bit about this, but nevertheless, it'll be helpful to know how you can get both the slides and the recording, and that will be quite simply to await in your email. You'll get a copy of the slide deck sent directly to you in PDF format by DonorSearch. So again, be on the lookout. And as far as the recording or everything else that a presenter has to say, you can get that simply by going over to DonorSearch.net, to the resources tab, as you see on the left side of your screen. And if you were to go down to Flash classes, that's where you'll see, of course, all the sessions coming up. And Flash Class Library will bring you to something very much like on the right side of your screen, which is the recorded videos, all the sessions that go back to 2016. So do be on the lookout, again, for the slide deck, and look to the recorded video section of the website for this session, which will be posted there in just the next couple of days. Now, in terms of being able to engage with our presenter, we have silenced all your microphones, of course, so there won't be any ambient sounds to interfere with your enjoyment, but we do want to make sure that you do have an opportunity to talk, to ask questions, and so to do that, simply go to your GoToWebinar control panel, go to the questions tab, and enter questions or comments at any point during the presentation. I'll do my best to synthesize those and provide those to our presenter at the end so he can answer them and address them in turn. Now, what is the session today? As you probably know, you are on the right plane. It's about LinkedIn marketing concepts for nonprofit professionals. And that title is adapted, in fact, from a great book that you have to take a look for. I have it sitting right in front of me. It's called You, Us, Them, LinkedIn Marketing Concepts for Nonprofit Professionals Who Really Want to Make a Difference, by our presenter today, who is, whoops, there we go, Mark Halpert. And Mark is, among many other things, a multipreneur, as he describes himself. He's the founder of 3 separate companies after a long career in finance. He's a LinkedIn self-branding pro, as you can tell by looking at his own LinkedIn profile, which I encourage you to do. And of course, he's an author of 2 books, a blogger, a trainer, a speaker. And he's been in the field for quite some time. In fact, his companies, just to list a couple of them, are Your Best Interest LLC, eGiving, and Connect to Collaborate, which is his 3rd company, started in 2010, which he uses to spread his LinkedIn and networking evangelism to train and coach others. So Mark has been somebody who, for many of us, has been a go-to guy on this issue as we figure out how to navigate what is the world's most important and strongest professional network, something that obviously nonprofits need to know about both as individuals and collectively for their organizations as they seek to meet other people who are real influencers in the world and be on par with them to have conversations that bring great value to our work and to our missions, as well as to us personally and professionally. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to the great Mark Halpert. Mark, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much. Let me just get my screen going here. And I assume you can see opening slide of the screen on the screen. I will thank you very much, Jay. I've known you for a number of years. We've rubbed elbows at conferences and all that, and it's a pleasure to work with you. I am the only person who's ever committed my thoughts on LinkedIn to the nonprofit sector. I thought that certainly there must be a book out there on this topic, and indeed there was not. So while some things have been written, nothing has really been written in a book format and in a concept format. So a couple of moments, if you don't mind, if you'd indulge me on, this is the book. The book is available on Amazon. It's not an advertisement for the book, but just the fact that now this is available to you to learn how to use this beast called LinkedIn. It's hard to use. It can be a lot easier to use once you know how to really use it. The book is conceptual. It's designed to give you high-level thought on what you need to be thinking about as you create your LinkedIn profile for yourself, for your organizational colleagues, and for the people who you're trying to attract to come to your mission, to donate their time, their expertise, and hopefully their money as well. It's you, it's us, and it's them. And that's where the title came to me. And I'll go through that, if you don't mind, for a moment. We who were born in the last century, which is probably just about everybody in this webinar, we're taught not to talk about ourselves. Well, that is previous century thought. You should be reaching within yourself and higher to talk about yourself in the context of why you do what you do. The vitality, the vital aspect of saying why you do what you do in your own words and in your own personality, and to draw other people who would be drawn to your personality, is really, really essential. And there is no better place to do this, to tell the business community about LinkedIn than you speaking to them in your words. That means that you just don't copy paste your resume. It means you just don't plop down some thoughts and hope that they will come. You have to plan this out. You have to formulate the ideas, the phrases that become the ideas, the lead that you're trying to take them. You want to get them to read from the top of your profile down as far as you possibly can get them to read in an attention deficit world. Tell them the role you play and how, not what you play, but how well you play that role. And how will they find that out? By you showing your exuberance and your excitement about the things you do and the successes you're seeing. And you are a subset of the organization you support. It is really important that not only you have a great LinkedIn profile, but that each one of your colleagues has a great LinkedIn profile. And therefore, everyone from the top, from the ED all the way down, including the board, including everybody that has public contact, should have a great persona on LinkedIn. And that takes a lot of work, individually, as a group, and uniformly throughout the organization. This is probably, in this profession, one of the largest industries in the world, if not in the United States. There's a lot of great people on this phone call right now. There are a lot of great people in your organization. There are a lot of great people down the hall from you if you share office space with other organizations, or down the street, or across town, or across the country, or around the world. You are all great people doing great work, but you're competing for a finite amount of limited donor dollars. So yeah, competing is a concept that not a lot of nonprofit professionals really focus on. This is where the LinkedIn platform allows you to compete with others to gain the attention you're looking for, so that someone sitting on the fence, a business professional sitting on the fence, do I give my money to the political campaign that I'm interested in, or do I give it to this other organization that is trying to save the world? You might get that tip in your direction if you convince somebody that your goal, your mission is as important, if not more important, than the others that you compete against. So it's a little bit of a mind squeeze for a lot of people in the nonprofit world, that they are competing with each other. But I want you to think that through as we go through this, and how you can be a competitive brand marketer in the words and phrases you choose to give the story of why you do what you do. Personal stories are great. They warm the hearts and open the wallets, as I say here. There's an emotional aspect to everything in business. We don't only buy with our heads, we buy with our hearts. So please think of this large 562 million person large LinkedIn membership as high net worth individuals you must engage with. And you have access to them in ways you probably are just amazed about. Yesterday, I was speaking to a prospective woman I was going to teach as a coach and found out we had all these people in common, and it just opened so much conversation about how we knew people in common. It tipped me into winning that piece of business because the people we knew in common were good quality people. I'm competing against other coaches. She was considering other people. That is just on a very small microcosm, a way that I tipped my way in by the people I must engage with by my reputation. And then high net worth individuals in the business world, these are the people that are either allocating corporate funds, grant money, or even their own funds in a world today for nonprofit donations that is very much, perhaps we'll find this out at the end of the year, how much it's held up by the tax laws that have changed, by the economics that we're undergoing, and by the fact that there are so many more places that people want to give their money in this election year and in next election year. So please be very aware you must engage in a competitive way with these people. So you, us, them, you, individual, yourself. Think deep, dig deep, find ways that you can step out and step it up using this power tool. And when you use a power tool, you have to know how to use it. Otherwise, it's very dangerous. So reach new constituencies individually. They will find you, or you can find them, engage with them. Everybody around you trying to accomplish the same thing should have equally good LinkedIn profiles. So the people you're trying to attract to draw into your fold, whether it's experience or it's time or it's volunteer effort or it's their money, will be more apt to want to give you because they've fallen in like with you until you make them fall in love with you enough to commit. So that's a little bit of the concept of the book. There's the you, one person, always looking for yourself to go forward. Your past makes you who you are today. Who you are today indicates your future. Looking for the better day when your mission will come to pass, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Us is everybody together. It's the team effort. The combined talent, creativity makes the sum of all of you greater than the total of you greater than the sum of the parts. So that's what I'm trying to say. And the them is everybody you haven't touched yet, or haven't given you what you're looking for, or that you want to make them understand that this is really an important effort for them to even consider, or even put you in the short list of places that they can allocate. So a really great quote here from Forbes, and this is, it's easy to tell nonprofit people this, that people give of themselves, or they buy a product, service, or they donate when their hearts and their minds, but especially their hearts, plant within the brand. So to have a look at this this article, it's written for a business, basically a service level organization or company or product that will make you understand that there are things you can learn from this article that you can implement into the branding of your organization. But that branding of your organization is the sum of the branding of each of the individuals in the organization. Word of caution, segue here. You're going to talk on LinkedIn in a different voice, in different vocabulary, and to a different audience than you're going to speak in Facebook or any other social media. As Jay said, LinkedIn is the predominant currency of engagement with the business network, the business community, and that goes almost globally. It is global. It is tremendous. It grows by leaps and bounds. People of all sectors, all groups of walks of life, all groupings are coming to LinkedIn because they realize this is where there's a well. And you can go to that well and you can take from that well and find things. And you can do the same thing on Facebook, but you're doing that on Facebook with the average consumer. You're doing on LinkedIn, you're doing this with the business, highly motivated business professional. So think about this differently. You should say things differently to different audiences because it will resonate with them in different ways based upon what they're expecting on the platform. Take a look at what's going on LinkedIn around you, emulate or copy the style that you're seeing that you think is successful, play with it, tweak it, it will come for you. So a moment ago, I was talking a little bit about your past, your present, your future. I want you to think about your LinkedIn profile as the story of your career, the story of where you came from, all the things you learned as you've come up through the ranks, the skills and the values that are, as I say, are in my back pocket. I can always take them out whenever I need them today because I learned them in the past and they're always with me. That skill set is always with me. And I can always use that skill set as I develop it even from the past and even develop it in the present. I can use it in the future. It's always there for me. So it's easy to copy paste your resume, which is past looking, backward looking, onto LinkedIn. But that's the cheater's way out. Don't cheat. Take your experience and don't give me factoids. Don't tell me little things that are going to make an impression. Tell me grander ideas and concepts from your past that make you who you are today. Who you are today, where you look to go in your future. There's nothing wrong with talking about your command of your future. And if you need to use the lever of my future is the accomplishment of my mission, you in the nonprofit sector are in a particularly excellent place to do that because people in business struggle with this. So you have a really good lever to talk about seeing your vision come to pass, what you're doing to make that mission come about. So I want you to think as you begin to formulate your ideas of your story is not just past, present, but it includes your future. If you're not familiar with this book, I really recommend you read it. If you don't have time to read it, I really recommend you go find it on YouTube, Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. You see his title, you see the author's name. He has a really excellent TED Talk on YouTube. If you have no time at all, but enough time for a TED Talk, go see his TED Talk called Start With Why. And what is happening with this book and what is happening with this next slide, which is an artist in Australia took the book and condensed it to a page, is that there's so much going on here. It's almost mind-boggling. I took it down, and with apologies to the artist, down to just this. And let me just explain what this is. Anybody can talk about who, and anybody who they are. Anybody can talk about what they've done. But when you begin to express why you do what you do, and let others say how well you do the why you do what you do, you've transcended to a much higher level of thought. People will agree, they become inspired with your purpose, your cause, your belief, they'll care. That's a really great way to get to the heartstrings. As I said in the earlier slide, it's not only the cerebral, but it's the emotional that makes people come out and help, makes people come offer their expertise, makes people give their hard-earned money. So the greatest leaders in the world have told why. Others have said how. They believe that why. And this is something that's really important. I would love to see more people in the nonprofit sector talk about their why and not give short shrift to LinkedIn, because the audience that's reading your why this is going to differentiate you in that audience's mind, because most people aren't talking a lot about that. Now, all of you are hearing me say that. You probably never thought about talking about why. You've always taken, a lot of people take, the easy path of throwing their resume on LinkedIn. That is not going to make people want to engage with you. So please consider not only the TED Talk or the book or these slides talking about why you do what you do. The best way to stand out from the crowd, be the yellow guy, because all the blue guys are all talking about what? The yellow guy is talking about why I do what I do. And when you use this as the guiding thought process in how you rewrite your LinkedIn profile, you have gone to a higher level. People will engage with you at a higher level, and your chances of success go crazy. They go much, much higher because you are saying something no one else is saying. Another concept, I love this concept, is called ikigai, which is Japanese for the French of raison d'etre. What is my reason for being? And I'll let you just take this slide when you get it in the handout and just look at it and think about it. These concentric circles all come together where love and needs and what you're good at and what you can be paid for all come together. In the middle, you've got the meat, the heart of what you're all about. And when you can explain your ikigai, then you are in a very, very unusual and high level place. So find your excitement, find your reason for being, what gets you excited to get out of bed in the morning, and go slay the dragon. What is that? Only you can express it, and no one can express it as well as you can. So don't let somebody else do it for you, because they're never going to do as good a job as you can. But you have to really dig deep and dig hard to find the right way to express your why, your ikigai, whatever it is that you're trying to promote here. So LinkedIn, and I'm using my LinkedIn pages as an example, it serves you very, very well when you know how to use it. The first way it serves you really well is that anything you put your name to on LinkedIn, if you share something, if you like something, anywhere your name appears in dark blue on LinkedIn, anything on LinkedIn in dark blue means you can either mouse over it or click it to find out more. So anything you see me do on LinkedIn where my name is in dark blue, you can click on that name and you can see what's called the intro card. And parts of this are going to be available everywhere I go on LinkedIn and do something. And it's really top level stuff, my branding. It's as if I'm a package and this is the front label of my package. It shows a nanosecond of an impression that I'm trying to make on you. And we'll sort of tear it apart bit by bit, high level. First of all, there's a banner. If you're not using the banner, then you've got some sort of turquoisey constellation looking thing there. That tells me you haven't taken the time to express in image or imagery what you do. Why do you do it? This is me in action. My book's on the top right corner, me speaking, me here, me there, all over the place. Whatever your mission is, if it's to save a lion in Africa, put a lion up there. If it's to enhance the living conditions of an indigenous population in Panama, put a picture of smiling faces of kids from that indigenous population. Give an image. Make people fall in love. These images are extremely memorable and they follow you throughout LinkedIn, as I said. So use that banner. Don't forget. Down below, add video, slide decks, podcasts, PDFs, Word documents, anything you got that's got color and talks about you or talks about you and the mission, add them there. It adds more visual interest to what you're doing. It allows you, without saying in words, because words are constrained, number of characters are constrained in each section of LinkedIn, to go much farther and talk about many more things, even on video. You get lots of space here. So I've got they're all the first 4 videos, and then the second 2 are slide decks, all about the things that I do. So lots of room here for multimedia. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. All of this is highly memorable. You can read. You're never going to remember everything you read, but if you see it and hear it simultaneously, video or any sort of other multimedia, you're much more apt as a human to remember it. I want you to be pinging in people's memory when they say, I'm looking for somebody who does this, or I need to talk to somebody who does that. I want somebody to say, oh, I saw an interesting video about that. Let me go find it and I'll send it to you. And then they've remembered you. Then you have a better chance of getting more airtime. And we'll talk, as I said earlier, about other places to put graphics on your LinkedIn profile. But for right now, this intro card allows you to put up to 6 individual graphics will show there on the bottom. Great headshot is essential. Get a headshot. Get a headshot every few years because we all end up looking different. Get a headshot with a background behind you. Get a headshot. You see on the bottom, all different headshots. Everybody looks engaging. Everybody looks like they're interesting and they're having a good time doing what they do. Some more than others. Some people are serious. Depends upon the type of work you do. What's best about these pictures are that if I go to meet you and I don't know what you look like, if I memorize your picture, The ice breaks. As soon as I see you walking towards me, I know it's you. There's no confusion. So I can meet you at a public place more easily. You can meet me, you can find me if that's what you want to do. And there's all sorts of, mental games that go on with how do I find this person? How am I going to waste up all this time? Remember, the other part of this, which is so brilliant, is when somebody calls you, get on that phone, get on that LinkedIn and look them up on LinkedIn so you know what they're saying and trying to convey about themselves, because they're probably looking at your LinkedIn profile at the time they're calling you. So you can find the people you're connected to in common. You can find the places you've worked in common. You can find the interests that you share in common. All sorts of ways to lower the expectations that it's going to be hard to get to know people. That's the biggest thing that holds people back. Find the areas of common ground. You have to concentrate on a headline, these couple of lines underneath your name. You get 120 characters, including spaces, and not one more. 120 characters to collapse down your experience. I do that. I've wrestled with this all my life. It's very hard to do. I suggest you do that too. Full of keywords. Keywords are really important. We'll talk about that in a minute. Make yourself accessible on your contact page on LinkedIn. Have your various websites, your blog, have your phone number. And if you are looking for people to call you and text you, have your mobile phone number there. Because without that, and if that's their preferred way of communicating, they will not be able to text you, nor will they work hard enough to try to find your phone number. So please make it easy for the people who are trying to help you by giving your contact information every which way, including Twitter, including your email. And that should be an email box that you look at on a very regular basis and check your texts and look and certainly have your other websites involved there too. The next thing you need to do on LinkedIn is be sure that you have what's called a personalized LinkedIn URL. And that you see in the yellow on the very bottom of this slide. I have personalized it to end with my name. If yours has some variation of your name and letters and numbers in it, then you probably haven't personalized it. You see it says from the LinkedIn Help Center. You go to that link, it'll walk you through step by step by step of how to personalize your LinkedIn URL. Why is this important? It's important because you're going to use it. You're going to use it on your business cards. So if somebody gets your business card, wants to remember who you are, wants to cue themselves up a little bit about what you talked about, they can go to your LinkedIn profile because it's on your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn URL is on your business card. You can put it on all your emails at the signature. I got this great email from this guy named Mark Halpert. What is he all about? I want to know more. Let me look at his LinkedIn profile because he's offering it to me. And this is where I talk about myself in the best way I know how. All my marketing material, the slide deck you're going to get has my LinkedIn URL on it. Because if you want to find out more about me, and that's what it's all about, then you can find out more about me from all my marketing material. And finally, if you've got a resume or you a speaker and you do a bio or a CV or whatever you call it, you should put your LinkedIn URL, personalized LinkedIn URL, right at the top so that it's no problem for anybody who's reviewing it to read you talking about yourself in the best way you know how. So we were talking about keywords a moment ago. There are 4 places where keywords are absolutely essential on LinkedIn. And let's take a little step back here. LinkedIn is a giant database at the end of the day. Boil it down to what it is a huge database of 564 million records. Each person is a record. And within that record, there are various words. They come and bubble up to the top. If you want to be found on LinkedIn for whatever you're doing, you need to use search engine optimization keywords, just like you do with Google, in your headline, that's that 120 characters base, your summary, which is just below that, in your experience, and in your skills. And there's a really good YouTube, and I've given you the link here, that you can watch. It's like 4.5 minutes to really learn how to use this. And it's a little old, but it still works really, really well. So take a look at what this YouTube is showing and learn how to use SEO keywords on your LinkedIn profile. Keep making your LinkedIn profile memorable. The more color, the more action, the more sound, the more video you have, the better off you are. Use it every place you can. Now, before I told you, it appears underneath your intro card. Where you get it to really work for you is you put multimedia in the appropriate section on your LinkedIn. Either that's in your introduction, which could talk about you generally, or it could be in the experience, the job you held in which that video occurred or is pertinent. So choose carefully, upload it from your hard drive or link it from the internet, and it's very user-friendly to put it on LinkedIn, and it pulls beautifully. It really pulls beautifully off of YouTube. So if you can get it to a YouTube channel, your own YouTube channel, or off of YouTube, and it's yours, and you have the rights to show it, and please be very careful about that, then you want to be sure that you put this either in your intro or your experience section on LinkedIn. And it will reinforce the images and the concepts you're trying to give without having to use words and be more memorable. Video is hot on LinkedIn right now. They keep adding new ways to add video. I've got a lot of video there, traditional video shot by a videographer, or me speaking at a conference, or me on television, whatever it is, that is really useful. But there's a new section, a new type of video called, as it's known in the industry, native video. And this is video you can shoot right on your mobile device, very raw, very natural, very unplanned, and it serves a really great purpose. Why is it interesting? It gets a lot of views. The first one on top got about 1,000 views within a couple of days. The one on the bottom got 318 views within a couple of hours. And these are big numbers because people are mesmerized by video. They want to absorb as much video as they can. If you can shoot video on the fly on LinkedIn, and you can, it's very, very easy, then you now have another way to show yourself at work. So use video. Show yourself at the village that you're trying to help, or show yourself at a concert, or show that's raising funds, or show yourself at a gala. Interview people, talk to them, let them talk, let them show themselves. Then you're giving them the opportunity to not only help themselves, but they're helping you at the same time. So it's this goes around, comes around thing that's so, so important. So native video as well as traditional video is very hot. Sorry. The intro section on your LinkedIn profile, the summary as it used to be called, is a place where it's a narrative that you tell why you do what you do. And it is not well done when it's bulletized. So use the pronoun I, use power verbs, and if you need to find power verbs, you can Google 185 power verbs, and there's a really good website out there which will give you lots of great ideas about using great verbs. You're aiming at a business audience, like you're giving a business presentation. You can be personable, you can be interesting, you can be yourself, but you have to be professional in everything you do. You know that, but a lot of people just don't do that well on LinkedIn, especially the intro. If the reader doesn't like what they see in the intro, they disappear, they leave, and they don't come back. So highlight how and why you do what you do, and use SEO keywords in this section, because this is one of those 4 sections I told you about. Spend a lot of time on this, and here's a hint for you. This is not easy to write. This is really hard to write. Write it every morning or whatever time of day on a blank screen on Word and save it. Do it like 5 or 6 times. Each time you're going to say something different. Print out all 5 or 6, use a yellow highlighter, pick out the best in each of the 5 or 6 attempts, then pull all those yellow highlighted materials together. You'll have a much better introduction. This is you talking about you, engaging the reader about why you do what you do, making them fall in like with you, so when they call you and you reinforce these themes based upon what you've said, they fall in love with you enough to do the next step you're looking for them to do. Talk about your experience. Chronologically, you can now reorder if you chronologically it doesn't work. A lot of people come and go from the same organization. Seen that many, many times, so you can add that. Again, I and power verbs, make it easy to read, make it factual. You can be personable. It's why. I can't enforce that and reinforce that enough. And the brands of the organizations you've worked for, these color blocks that appear next to each of your jobs, also helps people identify the logo of the organization you work for. So if it's a really well-known organization, by inference, they know you've worked at a great organization. It adds stature to the things you do. So brand and auto linking to that organization or to that company if you came out of the corporate world, these are really important things to do. Write this carefully, plan it out, be sure that you're reinforcing the same themes in different places, in different ways, all throughout LinkedIn. Make your experience, the past, use the language you use to explain your past, talk about how it helps you in the future and where you're looking to go in your present and where you're looking to go in your future. The recommendation section is a place where other people say how well you do what you do, how well you do, why you do what you do is the best way to say it. I said that earlier. So short, couple of paragraphs where they're telling a story. Best impressions, these are memorable. If I know Arnie, Joe, and Tony, or know one of them, and they wrote a recommendation for somebody I'm looking at and considering, that adds a lot of stature to the recommendee. So be sure that the recommendations that people write for you are exactly what you want them to say. Ask them to write a recommendation specifically referencing an anecdote, a situation where you did amazing work, something that makes you stand out. If somebody calls you up, a donor, a board member, and says, wow, you did an amazing job on that gala, I really like the way you did that or this, you say to that person, that's really kind of you, but when we hang up the phone, those words are going to be gone. Might I ask you, since you were so kind to write me that, to tell me that compliment, could I ask you to write a recommendation and say that exact same thing? And if they're worth their weight in salt, they will do that for you. They will do it willingly, and they will do it the way you're looking for them to do it, because they're giving of themselves to you. And that's something that's very common in this industry. So I want to be sure that you're getting every opportunity to make yourself look as really good, as is reasonable, truthful, and as you possibly can. I always get the question, how many recommendations should I have? And that's my rule, is that you take the number of connections of people you know that you're connected to, emphasis on people you know, and multiply that times 2%, plus or minus 3% is okay. You should have that many recommendations. The thought process I have is that 98% of the people you are connected to and that you know like you. 2% love you enough to commit their words about how well you do, why you do what you do. So again, there's that why, there's that Simon Sinek. Keep plugging at that, because that's what's going to make your LinkedIn profile really resonate. Skills is an area that I have very mixed opinions about on LinkedIn. I think that there's some good things going on. They just made some changes to skills, but let's define it. There's a guy named Seth Godin. Many of you are probably familiar with him. One day back in 2015, September 2015, he had a blog, and he wrote, if you can learn to be better at something, it's a skill. And if it's a skill, it's yours if you want it. So remember I said I had skills in my back pocket. I pull them out when I need them. I need to list those skills. So when I list those skills, what LinkedIn did about a month and a half, almost 2 months ago, is they began to aggregate these skills into sections: top skills, industry knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. You have no control over that. What you do have control over is the name of the skill. So be sure that you name skills better than something like management or finance. Those are really boring. Find the right name for the skills. Remember, skills are SEO, search engine optimization, keyword sensitive, one of those 4 sections. So you want to be sure you're using the right skills that people might look you up for, search for you. Now, hint to you, a lot of people get endorsed for skills by people that don't even know their skills. So if you see at the bottom, it says adjust endorsement settings. If you click that, and it doesn't even look like it's active because it's sort of a light gray, but it is. And when you click that, this box pops up. And if you manipulate these rocker switches to yes, no, no, yes, you want to be endorsed, of course. No, don't let LinkedIn suggest to my connections that I want to be endorsed by them, because then you're going to get a lot of bogus or not great endorsements. Only the people who really want to endorse you, really go out of their way and think to endorse you, will. And so that'll reduce down the number of cheap endorsements, and vice versa. Don't let LinkedIn tell you who they think you want to endorse. You do it out of the goodness of your heart. So yes, no, no, and it'll keep you out of a lot of trouble. Now, each of these skills, back to where we were before, has a number of people who've endorsed you for those skills and the names of the people who have endorsed you for those skills. So let's look at the skill I have in LinkedIn training. Now, I've gone through and I made a lot of changes. That 16 is now really bumped up a lot higher. So regardless of the number, let's just look at LinkedIn training. Notice that Sandra and 15 others have given me an endorsement for the skill. So let's look at, by clicking that oval, LinkedIn training, who's in there. So here's Sandra and David and Ann and Jerome and all these other people. If any of these people who have endorsed me in the past really don't know my skill in there, in that don't know my skill, you can move that rocker switch from the right to the left and hide that person's endorsement of you. So David, say I don't know David, or he doesn't know my skill better. I know him a little bit, I'm getting to know him, but he's never really had my LinkedIn training. Well, for the purposes of this slide, I would want to move that slide rocker over to the left so that he no longer is being obvious as an endorser of my skills. Because somebody might say to David, hey, David, how do you know Mark Halpert for his LinkedIn training? And he would say, I haven't, I don't know. He doesn't feel good. I don't look real smart. And the person asking that question doesn't look real smart, doesn't feel real smart. So be sure to only allow the people who truly know your skill to actually endorse you for it. And that's that yes, no, no thing. You can make that change starting now. It'll solve you a lot of problems. This is part of managing your brand, by discarding or hiding the people who don't know you for the skill they previously endorsed you for. Some people think they can go down all your skills and endorse you, think they're doing you a good job, a good deed, and they're really not, because they can get in those funky situations like I talked about with David. So please manage your brand, because this is everything you've got riding on your reputation. More on your reputation. You haven't talked about these things probably in your summary, your headline, your experience. The publications that you've done, either you've written, you've contributed to, you were quoted in, whatever. Or the books you wrote, the organizations you belong to, the courses you've taken, or that you've taught. And these are post your degree. And projects you're engaged in. These further differentiate you as somebody who's active in your industry and your career. You've worked for them. Don't be afraid to show them. And please be sure to keep them current, because this is someplace that people tend to forget. Oh, I had a publication last month. I forgot to put it in the publication section on LinkedIn. I need to do that now, because otherwise it just disappears, or it's not even visible. So once you put this in your LinkedIn profile, it's memorialized. It's there for good until you change it. So please keep this current. Now here's me preaching to the choir, a little guy on the bottom, show you volunteer experience. And I can't tell you how many nonprofit professionals I've spoken to who have forgotten to put the volunteer experience and causes they believe in that they do after hours, because they're contributing to other nonprofits. So not only show where you're working, give a couple of paragraphs or sentences about what you're doing there and why it's important, how it is taking advantage of your great skills for your employer by assisting other people. Talk about the pro bono work that you do. Talk about your education. Education, of course, and opens doors. It also opens doors to other alums who might be contributors, or might be advisors, might want to be on your board. Seek them out, they'll seek you out. Because each one of these schools, or any of the schools, has an alumni page on LinkedIn. So you can find the people you went to school with. If you're looking to add money to a project, these are people you have some sway with, because you enjoyed the same experience together. You have that common ground, though you may not have been in touch for a while. These are decision makers. That's why I even show my high school, because I do business with people I went to high school with, and I increasingly add to them, to this group of people, because I have listed my high school. And you should show the years you attended. And you do the math, you figure out how old I am. No matter what, they're going to figure out how old you are based upon the experience you have. Don't hide behind that. Make that something as your gray mark of courage, as I like to call it. It's something that makes people understand you've put in the time, you've got the experience, you've got the class. Show it. You've got that value to add. Groups. Let's take a second to talk about groups. Groups are changing very dramatically right as we speak. So I'll tell you about that in a minute. Let's define them. Groups are similarly interested professionals on LinkedIn within what's basically a silo. These are areas where people come together to discuss, to share, to talk about jobs they're aware of, to offer jobs that they want to fill in their organization. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of groups out there, many, many different groups you might find interesting. Nonprofit professionals, uh, nonprofit network. I mean, these are just some of the groups that I'm involved in. Please be sure that you are involved in groups and that you're showing the groups on your LinkedIn profile. And to see the groups that are actually showing on your LinkedIn profile, this is the inlays here, the overlays. Go to the very bottom of your LinkedIn profile and go to the following box at the very, very bottom and click see all, and then click groups on the next page, and you will see all the groups that you're involved with. Are you getting any value from these groups, or are you just languishing? Don't be a wallflower in your groups, only be in groups that you can contribute to and that are benefiting you back. So let's talk a moment. There are a lot of changes going on in groups, like as we speak. And this morning, when I finished this slide deck, I only had one URL, one bit.ly at the bottom of this. The second one just came out this afternoon. So take a look at both links. There's a lot of great changes coming to groups. If you're a manager of a group or if you're participating in a group, it's going to get a lot more fluid. LinkedIn has realized that groups have been very poorly operated and managed for a while. So I want to be sure that you're getting the best of the best. And this is it, folks. This is hot off the press. Both the links are really, really current information. So rather than go through and spend all the time, you read about it and find ways. And if you're not the manager of the group and you think you need a group for your organization or for your interest group, make one. Start a group. It's unbelievably interesting and rewarding to start a group and gather people around a cause that you want to talk about. Groups are interest groups, nonprofit groups, alumni groups, local groups, chamber groups, industry groups, all sorts of groups. Show and share articles that you read that you want to share with other people. Ask questions. Has anybody ever had experience with? Oh, I had an experience like that. Let me tell you how we solved it. So not only ask questions, but be willing to answer questions. Actively participate. It's an amazing communication tool and a really great way to meet the real movers and shakers in your industry because they care enough to contribute to your industry. This is the way that you really find and meet great people. And if you communicate with people in groups long enough and you feel comfortable enough to connect with them, go offline, have a phone conversation, get to know them, have coffee if they're in your same town, and then somebody needs to ask the other to connect on LinkedIn. This is a group that I'm really involved with. I teach baby boomers who are between employment. I add information. So here's an article I read. It was in Business Insider. I add an introduction called Impress the Interviewer, ... and get some real insight into the company by asking some of these. So I introduce it. I talk about, I curate the article. I talk about why the article is interesting, and I send it out there. And within a few days, there are hundreds of people who are looking at this. There's a group of 1,300 people. It's valuable to at least a few hundred of them. So it's all about adding and sharing the great information that you come across. Like I said earlier, ask open-ended questions. What features would you like to see? Does anybody have some feedback and comments that you'd like to share with me? Have you ever had a situation like this and how have you handled it? And give us enough information so you can get people adding the creative value of what they did so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. And you'd be amazed at how people want to help. I don't have to tell nonprofit people about how amazing it is that people want to help. Mostly those are conversations that I have in business groups. So another thing you can do, not only adding articles that you've read and shared, but you can actually give comments about putting the final touches on a session for DonorSearch. Really looking forward to doing it, and here's the URL so you can register. Maybe some of you saw that and that gave you the reason to register. Or maybe somebody referred that post that I made to you and they wanted you to know about it. And this is another place where you can also write new material. You can write essays about business issues that you want to share with other people, observations you have. So this is where all the work is done in that long rectangle at the very top. Either write a brand new article, add an image, add a video, or make a comment. And these are just some of the status updates I've done. Here's that one, putting the final touches on the DonorSearch for tomorrow, a public service announcement about what to do for business disaster, because of business readiness, because that's obviously a very important aspect right now as we speak. Friend of mine in Philadelphia, Joe Tumalo, he wrote an article on LinkedIn called Write It Down, about how it's so important and how the human mind does so much better when you write material to remember and to be able to cultivate it. And I commented back on top of it that I thought it was a great article, and I said, taking notes on this article in and of itself is valuable. So thanks, Joe. So I gave an opinion. And other people who know me say if I think it's important, they might want to read it too. So it's all about people wanting to know and sharing the goodies that we all need to share with each other. Long form essays, as I was talking about before, these are called LinkedIn articles. This is one I wrote about 2 years ago at this point. It's amazing. This is my all-time best, I think, and a lot of people really loved it. And if you can find it and want to watch this video, it'll talk about how gestures are so much more important than words. And the backstory behind this really quickly is that this was a championship soccer game between two boys teams, the boys team of Japan and the boys team of Spain. The Japanese lost. They were broken to pieces. And the Spanish boys, look at that kid's expression. This Spanish boy, through gestures and no common language with the Japanese boy, was able to console the boy and help him feel better. And it's about how gestures are so important. And if you can find this YouTube, and actually the YouTube is right underneath the screen capture, so you can actually watch it YouTube, you'll see how gestures on LinkedIn are so important. Sharing, liking, referring, introducing people to others. These are those gestures that are not verbal. These are those gestures that are so important that keep us all together. Brand yourself, excuse me, not only on your public profile page that comes along with you, your private profile page, your personal profile page, but the company profile page of the organization you work for. So share content covering topics that people need to know. They want to listen. They want to get an understanding of what you're all about. So here's a really good example of what's called a company profile page, a nonprofit in my area of the country, and they are just my all-time example of what to do on a company profile page. So go take a look at it, see how they use it, how they maximize engagement with the business community, and you'll get a really good idea of why I like it. So that's some homework for you to do. LinkedIn is a search engine, as I told you. It can help you find all these various types of people that you're always looking for, never have enough. So here's the way to do it. Search for people by how other people know them, or that you know, or you can use certain search terms like people in the nonprofit community in the New York metro area who have expertise in children's issues. You will find a list, and then you can go and you can refine that list. Ask people that you want to meet to introduce you, so you've warmed up the introduction. Don't badger or stalk them if they are just not ready or they're not able. You can search by multivariable search terms on LinkedIn. You probably know where to do that. Find the common threads. Just don't link to anybody. Only link to people that you know and have gotten to know through doing business. You can look at other people's connections. You just have to be very thoughtful about it. One way to be thoughtful about it is when you ask them to connect, is you ask them in a way that is very, very warm. Never send out the boilerplate LinkedIn connection request. Always tell them where you met them, give them the context, I always say, please join my amazing group of professional connections on LinkedIn. And there's 1, 2, 3 different examples of how I do it based upon certain situations of people I've met. Wrap up. You got to think about this. It's got to be complete. It's got to be planned. It's got to be smart. It's got to be presented in a way that the reader who doesn't know you falls in like with you. So you've got to be searchable through keywords. You have to be interesting visual for multimedia. Sight, sound is huge. You're talking about the why. And here's the kick you need. Get out there. Connect to other people who want to help you, because the higher level connection they are, the better level of collaboration you're going to have. So don't feel like this guy. Take it one piece at a time, one section at a time, one sit down at a time, but just keep it going. Don't stop. And realize that anything you put on LinkedIn can be changed, and only you can change it. So you have absolute control, and it's all reflecting on you in the way you want to be seen. So again, the book is now available with an accompanying online e-course, the book being conceptual, the e-course being techniques and how to do this, and put your mouse here and click there and you'll see how to, so it's available on that website if you're interested. And I want to thank you for, in advance, what I do is I always offer my, the people I speak to subscribe to my week daily blog. I have a blog on LinkedIn every day, Monday through Friday, except for holidays. So you can join that by following these instructions. And thank you. And this is my contact information. So Jay, I have talked for almost all of it, but 5 minutes. We have some time for some questions.
Well, yes, and thank you very much for making time, because I'm sure you could have talked longer. Thank you very much for all of this. Lots of very specific stuff, but it's still founded on that foundational principle of why we are doing this. And so it's so helpful. We do have a whole bunch of questions. I'm going to try to synthesize some, but it's hard because they're all addressing kind of different topics. But there was one question from Susan earlier, which I think was important. So I'm going to just read it as she has it. And that's, these are all examples of selling you. But how does this work when you're the employee of an organization?
Well, the employee is always selling himself or herself, because who's your audience? If your audience is a donor or a board member or anybody who happens to stop by and wants to know what you're all about, you're selling yourself every step of the way. So I only use my own LinkedIn profile and examples from my LinkedIn profile because, frankly, I don't see a lot in the nonprofit community that are really well written. So I want to be sure that you know what is possible. So the idea is, whatever you have to say, whatever walk of life you're in, whatever you're trying to convey, you should be saying it. If I can give you some inspiration and by what I say and the things that you can say, much beyond your resume, then you have some value. Now it's up to you. Sit down in front of a blank screen on Word, as I suggest, do it, write it, save it, do it again the next day on a blank screen, take it all and print it all out, take out the yellow highlighter, pull it together. That's how I've done mine. That's how I do with all my clients who I work with in all different worlds, but they have a problem expressing themselves. That's where I get involved. But hopefully that helps you understand that you are selling yourself and your organization every moment of every day.
You know, it's such an important point. I mean, I guess we're always, to some degree, whether we like the term or not, selling ourselves, whether we're working within an organization for the opportunities to do more or greater things within the organization as well as externally. And you also mentioned all those different kinds of people that we search for on LinkedIn, whether it's to see their photograph before meetings, so we have that great kind of sympathetic vibration when we meet with them, we can really have a good conversation, or whether it's we're looking for donors or board members, as you said in that list. And I wonder if sometimes maybe if we're presenting ourselves properly, if it makes all those things easier, not just for us, but for people looking for people like us, right? I mean, including those donors and those board members, they want to get a picture of us too, don't they?
To your point, Jay, everybody you're trying to convince to part with their expertise, their time, or their money is in business selling themselves. And LinkedIn is the common currency that they're all using, and very effectively. It is time for nonprofit professionals to get away from being afraid to talk about themselves, to sell themselves, and to realize they're competing with each other, to my earlier point. And where do you do it to the audience you're trying to convince? On LinkedIn. That's about the best way I can synthesize everything I've said in 58 minutes.
Right. We have a comment here from Lydia. I believe LinkedIn used to have more in the way of a means to look for board and volunteer opportunities. And you talked about some of that here, but she says they've changed over the last few years. Can you talk about the then and the now?
Then it used to be that there were specific areas. It was like a job board for being on a board of directors. I left that out of here because it's beginning to phase out to a certain extent. And I didn't want anybody to say 2 months from now, oh, it's gone. Where did it go? It really isn't taking off. I wish it were, because you can identify yourself on your LinkedIn profile as being interested in being on a board or being interested in providing pro bono work. But there used to be a way that nonprofits could go in and find those people. It's not easy, and it's really not used that much anymore. So I wish it were easier than that, Lydia. It's sort of phasing out. Maybe, and LinkedIn's always changing. Like I said, it's changing in groups dramatically. Maybe they'll resurrect that. Maybe they'll find a reason to do it. But hopefully there are other ways. But if you're looking for board members, if you're looking for pro bono advisors, put out an update. Hey, we are our XYZ organization. We have an opening for a pro bono advisor in nonprofit internet security. We need some help. We'd love for people to offer us their assistance. Contact me. That type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We have a comment from Jeff earlier about what to do with things in your career path if you're listing them, whether it's in chronological order, whatever it is, that you just prefer not to be there, and maybe it was you had a bad manager or something. So if you do have a gap, what's the best way to explain the gap in the timeline in LinkedIn terms?
You really shouldn't have a gap. No matter what you did that was not a good experience, you must have learned something and carried it away with you in a positive manner, or you learned from a mistaken position that you took. You have to be able to turn those lemons into lemonade, for lack of a better term. Just talk about what you learned there, and diffuse the focus on the fact that it was a bad situation. And just about everybody's been in bad jobs. I mean, that's just part of the game. So I don't think that time gaps are a good idea on your LinkedIn experience, because when you leave it out, it's like the stain on your shirt. That's all they see. That's all they focus on. So you want to be sure that you refocus them on the things you want them to focus. This is you talking about yourself and that situation in the best way you know how.
Right.
That's a little bit of marketing talk.
Unless you're Tom Hanks in Castaway, there's always a reason to explain where you were.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people got shipwrecked.
Right. We have a comment from Reed earlier too. What's a good approach to listing the webinar trainings like this one that you're participating in? So I mean, what's a way to show all the things you're doing to kind of keep fresh and that you're really active out there in the field?
Well, I mean, like you saw, I wrote an update putting the last touches on my donor search. You could easily say, looking forward to I hate to sound this way, looking forward to a donor search session on LinkedIn on September 13th at 3 o'clock. This is exactly what I need and probably will really help other people. Why don't you look at this registration and go there? So if you think it's something that people should know about, that you think that is really valuable, whether it's mine or anybody else's, tell them. In the old days, we used to have an events section on LinkedIn where you could talk about all the events that you were doing or participating in. They got rid of that, really much to my chagrin. So the only places to really, in the free form updates, talk about whatever you're fascinated with or whatever you're looking forward to. Show this optimism, because that's what's in this industry. The optimism that things can be better and you can learn more. So don't be afraid of that.
You talked about this SEO concept, and in case that's unfamiliar to people, it's the search engine optimization that we do when we're, for example, thinking about making sure that our organization rises to the top of a Google search. And we all know we want to be in the first page there. What's the equivalent here, Mark, in terms of LinkedIn to appear not just on the top of the results as a person, but maybe as an organization? What if you want your organization to be more prominent? There are lots of NGOs, there are lots of groups working on cancer. How do we make sure our organization is front and center?
The company profile page is not going to help you at all on Google search. So
Okay.
let's just put that out right there. That's going to be where your organization is going to appear on Google search is going to be something that your web developer does with the right meta tags and keywords that are baked into the code. As far as yourself as an individual, here's the beautiful part about LinkedIn. If you Google Mark W. Halpert, the very first thing, if it's not at the top, it's very close to the top for everything I produce on the web is going to be my LinkedIn profile. So if somebody looks me up, they're going to see at the very top, because that's where we go, me talking about myself on LinkedIn. That's beautiful. So the SEO is important in terms of the search on LinkedIn, in the four walls of LinkedIn in the search function. It's not going to help you a whole lot in Google search, and certainly there's nothing that's going to help your organization in Google search on LinkedIn, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, you talked about the conversational element here, really engaging in the groups, and I'm interested to know, with groups, first of all, if you're finding that there's much conversation there, but also when it comes to conversation, kind of more broadly on your own page, on your profile, if there's a big difference between articles, those big things that we write as kind of features, and status updates. Where's the real value if you only have so much time in terms of conversations in groups, articles, status updates? I know they're different, but they're all different ways of engaging.
They are all different ways of engaging, and I would say you should try your hand at all three of them and find
Mm-hmm.
the one that works the best for you. I mean, it's going to be different because your connection group is much different than my connection group,
Mm-hmm.
Jay. And so they're going to be stimulated to help you, write to you, give you ideas in different ways than my group is going to be. Um, it's a really good idea to show you're a thought leader in your industry by writing long form essays. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really good idea to show you can write, because the big thing, even if you're looking for a job right now, or you're not looking for a job, but you might at some point in the future, the big thing that hiring managers lament is that no one can write well. Well, let's get through that. Write well and put it out there as an example of the things that you're thinking about and writing about. In terms of updates, that's so free form. You can do as many updates as you want. It's as much as time allows, but it doesn't take much time to do an update. Read this great article, think you ought to read it, written by my friend Bob. Pop on the URL. That takes about 3 seconds to write, so it gives you lots of time. Then you're helping. So that takes a lot less time than writing an essay, because you can spend a lot more time writing a 500-word essay.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a matter of what you want to express, or how you want to express yourself. But show you're giving. Show at least once or twice that you can write. Show that you're offering others the good stuff that you're involved with.
Now, you've seen a lot change with LinkedIn over time. They're always playing with this stuff. I don't know if you have any unique insights into what they're doing in the future, but either what do you imagine coming up on the horizon that's really important for non-profiteers, both as individuals and as proponents of their organizations? What are you hearing that might happen, and what do you think should happen that would make LinkedIn even more powerful for our work?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's a really good question I cannot answer. And let me tell you why. A lot of what I'm hearing from other LinkedIn coaches like me are things that we're just talking about amongst ourselves, that
Mm-hmm.
somebody gets a tidbit or a scrap here and there from somebody at LinkedIn, and it becomes viral, and we all talk about it. So I really can't talk about it because I can't be sure it's right. The biggest thing right now is the revamping of groups. I mean, like I said, it happened today. So that's
Mm-hmm.
about as big a thing I can tell you that's going to layer into the future, into the immediate future. Microsoft bought LinkedIn not too long ago, spent a whole lot of money for it. We are seeing LinkedIn become much more intelligent to use, and the focus on LinkedIn is increasingly going to your mobile device. So here's a word of advice to you. If you're going to make changes on your LinkedIn profile, do it on a desktop. Do not do it on a mobile device. If you're going to use your mobile device, use it while you're on the go. So say you get a phone call and somebody says to you, I can't meet with you. I'm going to have you meet with my assistant. If you're on the go, that's a really good time to meet that assistant or read about that assistant on LinkedIn on your mobile device. But if you're going to do anything else intellectually or anything else where you're trying to add really good value, you should do it on your desktop. They are increasingly trying to improve the mobile version. I yet to feel comfortable with it. People younger than me, people who are more mobile friendly than me, they think it works better than the desktop. But there's a lot of things you can't do on your mobile that you can do on your desktop, and I keep going back to my desktop to do the hard work. That's about the best thing I can tell you.
I mean, it stands to reason also that LinkedIn is not just a professional network, but it's a broad one. There are hundreds of millions of people in this. Those are people in their 20s and they're people in their 70s. So we have to be able to talk with both, and be able to talk in complete sentences sometimes requires a bit of time on the laptop as well as on the
Yeah,
mobile.
and that's why I was pushing the mobile. Put your mobile phone number in there, because there are so many recruiters right now who are only dealing in text. They don't have time for email, or they don't read their email until the end of the day. Well, by that time, the job could be filled the way this is going. I have taught people on LinkedIn from 15 to 89
Mhm.
and everybody in between. And really, it aggregates in the boomers, because these are the ones who need it the most.
Wow. Well, boomers, take heed. And for everybody else,
Yay, boomers.
can you put your contact information back up there on the screen for us? I want to make sure everybody takes a last look at that before we go. Do you
Yeah,
have your
if
post
my
on?
mouse will cooperate. There we go.
Okay, so if you missed that before, please do take that down. You can see it all down there at the bottom. But have no fear if your pen has run out of ink, or you're operating on a mobile device and can't move your thumbs that quickly, then be on the lookout in your email, wherever that may arrive, for a slide deck. It'll be in PDF format with all this information. If you happen to be watching this afterwards as a recording, that you will not be receiving that slide deck, but you can reach out to Mark right here. You'll find that he's quite accessible. And if you're curious about the book, well, I'll let you know that at least one person wrote as we were going through the questions and said, I just bought it. Thank you. So,
wonderful.
so the purpose here was not to sell the book, but I do want to say, because he won't, that if you're looking forward to finding a way that you can operationalize all the things he's been talking about, make sure you are visible and that your organizations are too, this book is one way, a handy dandy way to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So with that, we will end today and thank Mark very, very much for coming in and sharing all this with us. We really appreciate it.
Jay and Hannah, thanks so much. And thanks everybody for listening.
And I want to welcome everybody else back. Next week, we have 2 incredible sessions coming up. Jeff Patrick of Cohort 3 will be here on Tuesday at 3 p.m. If you're interested in new media, this is the one for you. Maybe you've heard of Twitch, maybe you haven't. Somebody in your house has. There are hundreds of millions of people on it. That's just one of the live stream platforms, which is not only a place for people to play and watch games, but it's also a place that's generating tremendous revenue to nonprofits. He's doing a session again Tuesday at 3 on fundraising innovation, a practical guide to live stream P2P giving. And then on Thursday, we have a friend of the firm coming back, Jerry Alcock, and her colleague, Laura Miller, who are talking about, with a great title, In Search of the Unicorn. Yes, you can find a unicorn, you just have to be there Thursday. In Search of the Unicorn, creating better recruitment and retention outcomes in your development program. And boy, if we have an emergency in the nonprofit sector, it's keeping the donors who love us. So be there on Thursday for that. And in the meantime, thanks again to Mark, and thanks always to Hannah, and we'll see all of you real soon. Take care.